and let us all do we can to build a better future.
All right, Biden's approval rating is falling. New poll has shown that just 34% of Americans approve of the U.S. president's performance. I know. I'm going to pull up RT here. Look, folks, I don't know what 2024 is going to have in store for us, but get ready for some ups and downs. It won't be the most important election cycle. It'll just be the most interesting. Only 3 out of 10 Americans believe that U.S. President Joe Biden is paying adequate attention to the issues that concern them most, while a record low of 34% approves of his overall job performance, a new survey has revealed. The Monmouth University poll released on Monday showed that Biden's approval rating has dropped 10 percentage points in the past 5 months and is at its lowest level since he was sworn in as president. The percentage of U.S. adults who disapprove of his performance has more than doubled since he took office in January of 2021 to 61%. The latest polling results come at a time when Biden is falling behind former President Donald Trump in his bid to win re-election to 2024, as voters are increasingly concerned over inflation and illegal immigration crisis. Just 31% of Americans believe Biden is paying enough attention to the most pressing issues, compared with 65% who say he's not doing enough, the Monmouth survey says. Only 26% of U.S. adults approve of Biden's immigration policies, while 28% think he is doing an adequate job of handling inflation. So, look, the number one issue is going to be the economy. That's what's killing Biden right now. And I've said it in a previous episode of Hard Lens Media. Hell, I've been saying it all these past 3 months. The economy is going to be the number one issue. And I see all your stories in the live stream chat. I'm just going to say this again because I said this in a previous video that I clipped. I see your stories. And, you know, when I go ahead and check out other content creators, other independent media outlets, when they start talking about the economy, I see everyone's comments there. The stories are the same. The struggles are real. And the fear is real. And this administration hasn't done enough. And it gets so bad when Bill Clinton's Democrat pollster says Biden's polls are grim. I know. Huge shout out to Case Study QB. Let's play this video.
Your group found that some of the president's support is waning among some pretty key constituencies that he had back in 2020. What can you tell us about that? What are you seeing in the numbers?
Look, that's actually the most important piece. And, you know, sometimes people say, are the polls too early? You know, but when your approval with your base is lower than your opponent, you know, you need a new start. You need to look fresh. And, Frank God, David Lauder in the LA Times finally pointed out every incumbent, every leader in the world has low approval. They're losing elections. What's happening with Biden is not new.
Actually, you know what? To a point, you are correct. Every leader faces turmoils. But here's the thing. I remember the onslaught of propaganda, as do all of you. That's right, all of you. Now, corporate media is going to say that you're stupid. Corporate media is going to say, oh, well, we're going to think for you. Here's the real truth. This administration was riding that train of 2020 of saying, we got to defeat Trump and bring back freedom and justice and new opportunities. And none of that happened. I remember all these big promises that were being made and how somehow Biden being into office, the soul of America was going to return. No, that didn't happen. So this is unique. This is something new. And I'll explain why. Because there was so much hype put around Biden. The fact of him beating Donald Trump, it was going to be a rebirth of a country. That everything was going to be A-okay. That all the troubles and ills and all the pain and suffering and mental anguish would disappear overnight. Big promises being made. The great media was going to finally be able to be free and speak the truth. And as time went on, we saw that nothing changed. So there was a promise kept, especially during the debates when he was debating against Bernie Sanders. And yes, even Donald Trump, that nothing was going to fundamentally change. It just got progressively worse. So, folks, this is something new. And by the way, in regards to this election cycle, which is something maybe a little bit off topic, but notice that the third-party candidates have actually gotten more coverage than they did in 2016 and in 2020. Meanwhile, the Democratic primary, and yes, surprise, surprise, there are 3 candidates in the primary. How much attention are they getting? A whopping 0.
Right.
But we are coming out of a period with three exceptional factors. I've talked about them in the Financial Times article that I wrote. One is inflation. Inflation concentrates the mind. It's been inflation on essentials, getting energy, fuel prices, food, real basics.
Yeah.
Second has been the fact that the political class has done nothing about the profiteering. And then third is the migration that's come through as a result of wars and climate change.
So the immigration issue is a real thing. The question
Yes, immigration issue is a very real thing, but there's a reason why there's a migration crisis, and it goes decades before Biden got into office. Now, he was senator when the stuff was going on, but we could blame former presidential administrations, both Republicans and Democrats, that are responsible for the migration crisis, the coups, the regime change wars, the sanctions, the war on drugs. I can go on and on and on. But when you create an environment of instability and pain and madness, of course, a rational person is going to want to run away, which is why we got this crisis now here. And I'll be talking about that later on in the show, especially here in Chicago with the migration shelters, which turned out no sanctuary city had a goddamn plan.
I have, though, is inflation is cooling. I mean, if you look at gas prices, they're going down. They're around $3 a gallon in the Washington, D.C. area, Maryland, and Virginia. I suspect it's fluctuates depending on where you are around the country, but generally coming down. People aren't feeling that enough just yet.
It's a bubble. It's a bubble. People, look, what I have discovered.
Hey, folks, I'm going to ask this painful question. Now, I know, don't rage out. Is that, hey, how's this bubble treating you of inflation as it's shrinking down? Type 1 for, gee, kid, I've noticed inflation is shrinking down just a little bit. Things are getting a little bit better. I got a smile on my face. It's A-okay. Tattoo man, no, dude, stop asking that question, man. It's still tough out here. What, inflation is going down? There's still a lot of other problems, buddy. My wallet ain't helping out. It's empty. There ain't no fly to come out of it either, like in those old Saturday morning cartoons. There's nothing in there. Hell, my wallet is disappearing. I wonder how many twos we're going to get in the chat. I wonder.
In doing my polling in Europe, in the UK, and here, what matters is how many months people have been struggling to deal with inflation. And each month they get madder and madder about it, as long as their wages are trailing prices. And
so they're grumpy right now.
There's still look, get out of the bubble. They are it's 3% higher than it was when Biden came in. In the last 6 months, there has been a decline in disposable income. So the context is you have to start there. Inflation is like 30 points higher than the next problem. And you can't, what the president currently doing is his tweets always start with, we're making progress, and then he mentions prices. If you look at his ads aimed at black voters, it's mainly trying to convince them they're doing a good job. But that's not where they are. They are losing ground every month and anger about it. But then you have to stop. You have to say, what's the main problem? How do you deal with the first problem, which is inflation and the cost of living?
Stan, the Washington Post has some new reporting out today about a meeting President Biden held with.
Well, let's talk about inflation. Let's talk about what caused it. All right. Well, let's return back to a year that we all might finally remember, 2020. Remember those lockdowns? Remember there was a supply chain crisis? Remember how our infrastructure is falling apart? Remember how the fact that, again, there's been no real investment in updating America's infrastructure? Yeah, those lockdowns, a crumbling infrastructure, all of it was coming front and center in 2020. And of course, all of you, we were told to stay home, stay locked in. Can't go to work, but you still got to pay the bills. Many of Americans accumulating credit card debt. Look, here's the thing. I understand why people were doing what they had to do, because everyone has to survive. And that's a real truth. If you're not trying to survive, I mean, come on, folks. But it is right now becoming a struggle, and our government abandoned us. The politicians abandoned us. Now I know how the ancient Romans felt during the waning days of the Roman Empire. Hell, I probably know it's probably how the Byzantiums felt in the waning days of Byzantium, as eventually it became nothing more than just the city of Constantinople. This is what it feels like when your institutions fail you and leave you on your own. Does it come as a surprise that all of us no longer trust our institutions? Like, ideally, I like to believe You know, in an ideal world, the media informs the people about corruption, abuse of power. Our leaders succeed in making our lives easier and protecting us. All this sounds good. We don't live in that world because we have politicians who are sociopaths, and of course, they're controlled by the top 1%.
With his staff about his poll numbers. And it says in part, after pardoning a pair of turkeys, an annual White House tradition,
Right.
Biden delivered some stern words for the small group assembled. His poll numbers were unacceptably low. He wanted to know what his team in his campaign were doing about it. What are they doing about it? What should they be doing about it?
Okay, you could yell at your team, but guess who else yelled at their team about their stance on the economy? Hillary Clinton. So during the 2016 election, you know, she was still struggling behind Donald Trump. Now, of course, before we all knew how it would all play out, corporate media was doing everything it can to build a shield wall around her and make her to be the obvious choice than over Trump. Well, we all saw it, especially those who remember Philadelphia. I remember Philly. Trump was beating Hillary Clinton. And it looked very clear at the time that, oh, no, there was a possibility. And Hillary Clinton, oh, she was yelling at her staff. Jesus Christ. To be a fly on the wall, to hear what was going on in the inner sanctum of the Clinton campaign was Hillary Clinton right there in the center. I wonder if she was yelling at the people. I wonder what she was doing. I wonder who got the chewing and, oh, gee, how many people maybe might have walked out alive. No pun intended, but seriously. Seriously, folks. Biden, the buck stops with you. You made sure nothing would fundamentally change. And plus, during his administration, it became very clear to all of us, and we cover these stories about, oh, yes, insider trading happening in Congress, like Nancy Pelosi and all her fantastic friends. And Biden is frustrated by his dismal poll numbers. Well, gee, maybe when Americans are broke and struggling, they're going to blame the boss, the guy who's running the whole show. You would think he would do something to bail us out. Hey, by the way, Biden, look, not to bring up this old debt, but you still owe us that $2,000 stimulus check. And no, that $1,400 plus $600 does not count. I'll take that money, but that was Donald Trump who gave that to us. You promised us $2,000, baby, with interest. And listen, the Fox News stereotype is very true about Chicago. Okay, I want my money. Where's my money?
Well, what the president currently is doing is still talking about progress. And you can't talk about progress when 3/4 of the country think we're on the wrong track. You have to stop on the notion that we're making progress. You have to get where people are, and where they are is on the rising prices. They need to stop with their own voters and say, "We get it. If inflation is the biggest problem, we get it. Yeah. We know what you've been through. We're in touch with that. Here's what we're."
That's the biggest mistake you could say. Oh, I get it. Oh, yeah, I've been kicked out of my house. My house has been foreclosed on. Yeah, I get it. I can't afford rent. Oh, yeah, I get it. I understand. Meanwhile, the politicians are eating their caviar and having a glass of champagne. Oh, I get it. Hey, folks, how would you feel? Let's say your United States Senator and U.S. House Representative just met up with you. That's right, you. And they said, hey, we get it. We understand. What would be your response? There's no such thing as a wrong answer. I won't give you multiple choice. This is what you call an extra 10 points, extra credit to put on your free answer. Have at it, audience. And yes, I will be clipping this video. So no such thing as a wrong answer. What would you say to your elected officials when they say to you, yeah, I get it as you're struggling. I get it. I get it.
We're dealing with it. We are going to do a child tax credit. We're going to cut drug prices. We're going to lower healthcare costs, and we're going to go after the big companies that are getting out, aren't paying any tax. We're going to go after profiteering. We're going to shift power from work to workers and focus again on the needs of working people.
Yeah, all sounds good on paper, but hold on. Wait a minute. Here's the problem that Biden's going to have to contend with, and that is people who are upset, especially people who used to work and help out the Biden administration. Let's play this video here.
Muslim and Arab American leaders are warning President Biden that he could lose their community's support over his positions on the Israel-Hamas war. The issue is especially acute for the White House in the battleground state of Michigan. which is one of the largest Muslim and Arab American populations in the country. Some people in Michigan say Biden has already lost their vote for 2024. NBC's Shaquille Brewster hit the ground there to learn more.
Adam Abusala worked on President Biden's 2020 campaign in Battleground, Michigan.
Yeah, I was working on Arab American engagement, getting people out to vote for Biden.
So committed that his Palestinian American parents put Biden 2020 on his birthday cake that year. But today, as President Biden shows unwavering support for Israel in the wake of Hamas's terror attack, Abusala says he's devastated.
Right now, I have family in Palestine who's afraid for their lives, and Biden is doing nothing to stop it. I'm hurt for the betrayal that we feel from Biden, but I also feel like a little bit of guilt for what I've done.
Amid a humanitarian crisis.
That is a devastating gut check for Democrats when people are saying, I feel guilt for helping out Biden. Hey, Bernie Sanders, what's it like knowing that you cucked out to your best friend? Because I got to tell you, folks, I maybe I don't know how the world would be. I mean, we know how it all turned out for Bernie Sanders, and maybe it's a good thing he never got elected into office as president. Maybe it is. But I have to say, as this whole entire election has played out, the choices that were made, I don't feel pity for the Democrats. They did this. Myself and Daniel told everyone that this was going to happen. I remember Jimmy Dore talking about this. I remember everyone in independent media talking about this. That the Democrats were going to reap what they sow. And no, this isn't an endorsement of Trump, but Trump kept his political movement together. That's a fact. If that offends somebody, okay, well, then you're offended. But Trump kept his movement together. Now, I don't know how sincere Donald Trump is going to be in helping out us. But I'm not going to be surprised if he wins the Republican primary. And yes, I'm not going to be surprised if he wins the general election. I know how I'm going to react. I'm going to have a nice steak dinner and that's it. No matter how it turns out, I'm going to eat good that night. The only disappointment I'll probably have, so whoever does like the whole collab of people on the left melting down, I won't be part of that meltdown. So my little subject would be, I just kind of wanted the third parties to win just a little bit. Maybe get to that 5%. That'll be my only low point, of seeing how third parties did. And I'm preparing myself for that disappointment, but here's how it's going to be. I wish third parties actually put more effort in. Oh, well, that's it. So if there's ever going to be like a, collage video or anything like that, just remember, my only point is I was rooting for third parties. Just want to get that very clear.
And with the civilian death toll in Gaza rising, Muslim and Arab American community leaders warned the president's re-election support in Michigan could be in jeopardy.
They said that we had to save America from Donald Trump, and now we feel that we have to save Palestine from Joe.
Oh, save Palestine from Joe Biden. One last video here. I don't want to go too much into it because it's morning blow. Prepare yourselves, folks.
Gave us out with a new feature, a cover feature for New York Magazine this morning about his recent time inside the Biden campaign's re-election headquarters. The piece is entitled "The Alarming Calm of the Biden Campaign." And Gabe writes in part this: with less than a year until the 2024 vote, there is a glaring cognitive split at the top of the Democratic Party, while commentators and many strategists are aghast at Biden's polling slide and desperate to see a course correction. The president's aides at the White House and at re-election headquarters give every indication that they consider the election very much under control. To many outside this bubble of confidence, Biden's position looks as feeble as ever. His job approval rating is hovering below 40%, lower than any president in recent memory at this point in his first term. Many young voters appear to be revolting against him, reading his administration's support for Israel as a lack of concern for the mounting civilian death toll in Gaza. There are a slew of encouraging reports about the economy, but voters don't seem to be giving Biden any credit. Instead, they're just pissed off that everything costs a lot more than it used to.
And enough of that, all right? Enough of morning blow. That's as far as I'm willing to go because that's corporate media. And I want all of you to at least have a wonderful morning as you're watching this show, especially live. So if you see this video clipped, hey, I'm doing you a favor because you're going through all of that. Case study QB, I don't know how you sit through it all. You're made out of stronger stuff than me, okay? So let's finalize this. What can be taken away from this? To all of those people who were hoodwinked, tricked, or bullied, or maybe had the belief that Democrats had your best interests, I hope this wakes you up. Ideally, I want everyone to break away from the two-party system. Now, I don't know if I'll see that in my lifetime. I do hope. And maybe with this election, I don't know, if third parties can actually get their act together and maybe there's more interest into people seeing or getting involved in politics, maybe this could be the extra push needed to, yes, I'm going to bring it up again, for people to be more involved with citizen ballot initiatives and making their own state a citizen ballot initiative state. And that will be an arduous, long fight because states that are citizen ballot initiative states, they're at risk because their local politicians, both Democrat and Republicans, there's been numerous examples being brought up about how they want to take away the citizens' right to actually, implement laws to make their lives better. Okay. So citizen ballot initiative is where it's at. This election cycle, I'm not surprised at what's happening here. I said that this was going to happen. Daniel said this was going to happen. Jimmy Dore said this was going to happen. INN said this was going to happen. Everybody, Due Dissidents, Revolutionary Blackout Network, the names go on. If I'm missing people, I am sorry. But we all said this was going to happen, that the Democrats were going to crap the bed, and here's where they're at. And oh no, they got to keep on using the fear of, if Trump gets elected, civil war, civil war, civil war. Will you shut up about it? People are stressed out enough as it is. Democrats, you did this to yourselves. You're your own worst enemies. You never followed through with anything. AOC, Bernie Sanders, you never held Biden's feet to the fire. You just obeyed and marched along with the machine. And now you're surprised at what? Trump is ahead? I'm not. And so for everyone else, it's going to be crying and melting down and panicking because Trump. Okay, guess what? He gets reelected. He serves his 4 years, and everyone's going to say, he might not step down. All right, in case that crazy scenario happens, guess what? Not to be that guy, but I will. It's not the first time that ever happened in human history, but I don't see that happening because that's a liberal fantasy. Because a lot of these vote blue, no matter who people want you to live in fear. I am done living in fear. I got enough problems as it is. I'm pretty sure all of you got enough problems as it is. So Democrats, you want to do up the fear, you want to do all of this, fine. I'm not listening to it. And you made it clear to me that you don't want my vote. And I encourage my audience, vote how you feel like. You want to vote Democrat? Fine. You want to vote Republican? Fine. You want to vote independent? Fine. You don't want to vote? Fine. Just stay tuned to Hard Lens Media. And somehow, maybe someday, we'll get this crazy ship to shore and maybe our lives will be better. But until that day happens, just take care of yourselves and each other.